My name is Kasia Jakimowicz from Open Evidence, and I'm responsible for stakeholders engagement for Global Internet Policy Observatory. I would like to welcome you today to the second webinar of GIPO initiative, and this webinar will focus on discussing key findings from working sessions of workshop that took place in Sofia in June. So very briefly about the agenda. We have David Osimo from Open Evidence and Meijueiro from Fundacion CTIC with me, and together with me they are going to discuss the summary of workshop findings. Then Christina Monti and Maciej Tomaszewski from European Commission will focus on what comes next, and afterwards, Susan Chalmers from Friends of IGF will present the initiative and focus on discussing the possible synergies between the Friends of IGF and GIPO initiative. During the whole presentations, your microphones will be switched off, but you can ask questions, and all questions will be addressed during Q&A session. So very briefly about GIPO initiatives for those of you who didn't participate in previous events or webinars. The objective of Global Internet Policy Observatory is to provide technical tools that will make information on internet policy and governance widely and easily accessible to all communities that otherwise maybe would not have access to this information and would be marginalized in internet debates and decisions. So the idea is to create the automated tool that will apply advanced technologies such as data mining and semantic analysis to data that is already available in order to overcome the information overload and the problem of fragmentation of information and cover all this information in one place. The initiative started in 2015 and was initiated by European Commission, and its first phase will last till 2017. One of the aims of the initiative is also to engage community into the development of the platform through webinars, live workshops, and active consultation process. And part of this engagement activity was the workshop on co-designing GIPO platform that took place during EuroDIG 2015 conference in Sofia. And it was mainly targeted to the community of internet governance and policy 2.0 experts, as well as technological experts working on similar tools and technologies. So that was a brief introduction. During the workshop, the workshop was divided into 3 sessions. First session focused on synergies between GIPO and other initiatives and how to ensure the interoperability of mapping initiatives through common taxonomies. And this session was led by Stefan Verhulst from the GovLab. Second session was led by Cornelius Puschmann and focused on discussing how the social media data should be analyzed and presented for informing policy debates. And lastly, third session was led by Toby Crayson from TextRaiser and focused on how to get the most from semantic analysis services. That was an introduction, and now I would like to give the voice to David Osimo that will discuss the findings of the second working session.
Thanks, Kasia. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I will briefly summarize what was the result of the presentation of Professor Puschmann and the following discussion. Professor Puschmann focused on how we can analyze social media data, and we could use and present them to inform a policy debate. And this is obviously related to what extent and how can GIPO use social media data. The key challenges, however, are having access to this data because they are proprietary and not all social media have the same availability. How to curate the sources, how to make sense of them, how to categorize them. The heterogeneity of information, audiovisual, textual, the multilingual content, and the scalability of IT. In particular, when it comes to curation, the key issues revolve around the use of hashtag and keywords, who decides which hashtag and keywords to attribute, whether this is a top-down or a bottom-up exercise, and who are the users that are to be involved. This concretely means, as a recommendation, that GIPO should consider different audiences. So not all users want the same, not all users think of issues in the same way, not all users use the same categories. In this domain, in particular, journalists, activists, and scholars have different approaches, combining crowdsourcing and computational techniques, so automated creation of tags and hashtags versus bottom-up creation of them through the work of users, and integrate the approach with other similar initiatives such as Net Mundial and other observatories. GIPO is, by design, an automated aggregation tool which could work together more human driven tools such as the Net Mundial Solutions Map and others that are around. Now, this presentation was really well received and led to a serious discussion in the working group afterwards. The key points that emerged were the issues of access, because, concretely speaking, Twitter is easier than Facebook, and in any case, Twitter does not provide full access to the data, even Twitter. We should really we should consider that clearing houses might be necessary. So third-party services which gather social media data and make it usable and reusable, and that in many cases are not for free. So this is not only an organizational issue, but also financial issues if you want to use social media for policy analysis. The second point is that, especially in contexts such as GIPO, social media should not be considered as tools to monitor the opinions, to see, sentiment analysis on what people are thinking about, net neutrality. This is not the purpose that it should have in GIPO. In GIPO, it should really focus on identifying new sources for the analysis, for the semantic analysis. Social media can help identifying sources that were not included before, and that can be used for additional semantic analysis by third-party tools, by the GIPO tool itself. Also, when you think of this in terms of not a sentiment analysis tool, but really about identifying news and sources, you could also start doing some comparison. And some of the participants to the discussion table had used social media not as a tool in itself to discover news, but as a tool which allows a comparison between what is relevant in social media and what is relevant in media. And the difference between the two could really help understanding to what extent official media are responding to what citizens feel is important, or to what extent they are biased and piloted towards some arguments. So it could help really identifying some potential conflictual areas, some potential censored areas, some potential hot issue that is to be addressed. And when it comes to hot issue, we also should consider social media as an important resource to monitor issues across time. So social media could help identifying in real time what issues are being discussed, what pieces of content are important, are worth attention. So they would help navigating through the overload of information, not only in terms of finding the information, but also finding what information is considered important at one specific point in time. And this is a kind of automated service that social media can help, it's quite effective in doing. So that was the result of the discussion. Certainly there was a lot of engagement and interest in pursuing the discussion further. Thank you.
The first discussion of the first working group, and what were the observations of Stefan Verhulst, and what were the further recommendations of the working group. And then Louis is gonna move on with the third working group and the summary of findings. So basically, the first group is just, let me check just So the first working group was discussing how to ensure interoperability of mapping initiatives through common taxonomies. And the major observation that Stefan Verhulst made is that there is a wide diversity of approaches to address the information deficit with regard to internet governance, and all these approaches have been initiated over the last 3 years and are still being implemented. And what we can observe is that the several projects touch upon the same type of the content and similar kind of issues, and in addition to that, most of these projects want to use the collective intelligence of the internet governance community. So there is but even though we see some overlaps, the coordination is not always there. And in addition, there are high transaction and human capital costs on top of that. So what Stefan Verhulst observed in his presentation is that there are synergies that many projects will benefit from exploring, especially with regard to developing common taxonomies and exchanging and producing content, whether physical or automated, with regards to identifying experts, analyzing the data available, or just resource pooling. And we further discussed it during the working group with participants, and the main conclusion was that the taxonomy is a basis to organize the data set, and it's at the very beginning of the whole work. And there is a clear need for a common dialogue and a universal way of describing data set, because it simply makes the user's life easier. While when the taxonomy is similar or tagging is similar, then they can use the same kind of taxonomy and tagging through different initiatives, and at the same time different initiatives can pull the data using the same taxonomy and tagging. So slicing and taxonomies are crucial, especially if you want to have some kind of interaction between the sources. There is, of course, a need to search beyond the bigger taxonomy itself via wider tagging of different topics. In addition, the working group had a clear recommendation that the taxonomy should be dynamic and flexible to some extent. And there is a need to engage people to express comments on how to structure information, so people should be able to, while the GIPO tool is being developed at some point, to comment on the user interface and give feedback. There is also a need to, but I talked about it before, not only to pull information, but also push information to have a sharing environment. So it should go both ways. And of course, there was the suggestion for 2 levels of information. So mapping as organizing the structure of information plus resources itself. So mapping as less dynamic, while resources will be changing all the time in this, and will be feeding into the mapping. So mapping as a way to structure the information in a nice way for a user. So, and we finish with the recommendation that there should be a brainstorming session to start the process with all the mappers and observatories being involved, where we can really discuss on what to do with the taxonomies and tagging. So that now I'm going to give the voice to Luis to cover the third working discussion.
Good afternoon. This is, I think, maybe the more obscure part of the webinar and also of the past workshop because of its technical nature. But this is a core for the project, because this is a project that, as Kasia mentioned in the introduction, is heavily focused on the automatic processing of sources of information to get all those discussions and documents and information about internet governance that is permanently flowing through internet. So we will rely on some semantic techniques and other advanced techniques focusing in text analytics and data extraction from natural text. So we discussed about how to get the most from these semantic analysis services, because that's what we use in the development of the GIPO platform. GIPO platform, technical platform, is a software, obviously, that has a series of functionalities for the users and also for the administrators to cope with the list of sources where information is gathered, and also to manage it and to create the content. But to automatically do that, we rely on external semantic analysis services that perform some tasks for us. So we had one of these companies represented by its manager, Toby Crayston. This company is TextRazor. It's a US company. It's one of those semantic services. So Toby explained us some of the most important parts of these tools. So what does semantic analysis does with these sources of information? As Toby explained, it adds a structure to an unstructured text. This means that information that usually is delivered in different formats, such as articles or from blog posts or even from documents shared in websites, are for humans, not for machines. So if we want a machine to try to understand it and to classify and to finally decide if the topics underlying these texts lies in a specific field of internet governance, we have to use some of these techniques. So this kind of tools helps to uncover hidden relationships between terms and normalize also the metadata that is the data that describes another information and another data. But there are some problems that Toby explained. One of the main problems is the ambiguity. Even humans, sometimes if you do not provide the context of certain pieces of information, you can misunderstood it. There's some kind of ambiguity. So for these services to choose and to test these services and to choose the best one that suits our purposes in GIPO project, we have to see it and to see how they understand the information and how they produce, they show us the correct answer. The correct answer is the answer that we want for our project, that chooses the information that talks about one or multiple topics under internet governance and not gets false positives, like we say in this field. So there are many different examples of this kind of ambiguities, not only one kind of ambiguity. These are in the presentation that you can download from the web portal. Here are only some points, like different classes or taxes, because some of these services want categorize the information that get from a company, or they say it's an organization instead of a company. For instance, there are incomplete what we call entities, or when these services analyze a whole sentence, there's different kind of extraction of their terms. They are not the same. They are not working in the same way. And another problem, that main problem, is the multilingualism of these services, because we are so complex humans, and we have different languages, and moreover we have different alphabets, for instance. So when we say we are in a language that uses a Latin alphabet versus another language that uses, for instance, Cyrillic alphabet, there is even a case that where letters meaning different things in different languages. One recommendation is using in computer programming, using special code. The UTF-8 code is a good practice, but even sometimes there is problem using this kind of. So it does not solve every case, and also obviously for instance using in the names of persons or of people. There was an example that used with David Cameron, and you can find it in different, not only languages, but different way of saying it, putting first the family name and or even adding its title or things like that, and meaning that in this case this services doesn't want to normalize the names and try to find the standard name for everything. And there are also other problems that you can see in his presentation. And the summary of the working group conclusions that we debate about these issues and how were they related with the current development of the GIPO platform, we find two distinct problems for GIPO. One is to locate the correct, as we said before, elements in those tests that the tool analyzes from the sources and say, okay, this content is good, is correctly matching one of the areas of this taxonomy that we've talked before, and we will feed it into the platform, and then we will process it. This is one of the problems. And another problem is, okay, we have what we find is a correct content, an appropriate content for the platform. Okay, we should classify it under one and multiple types of areas of knowledge in this taxonomy, and also tag it appropriately with the person that is named, with the organization, with the location of the content, and then also link this kind of information with another articles or documents or so on. So we find that we prove that these tools, these semantic tools based in information technologies, still does not fully reach human semantic processing. It's obvious, and especially it was pointed that in some areas like sentiment analysis that tries to get if a content is saying things in a good manner or is ironic and saying things but in a badly manner, they usually fail these kind of semantic analysis services, but they are still useful, and we rely on them because of that. But the main conclusion is that we still need to be complemented with some level of human feedback from users. I think we think that users can help us also in the taxonomy validation. This discussion that Kasia said is about to begin, and we hope to get many users as possible and have their voice and trying to define this common taxonomy and group of shared topics. And also we think that these algorithms that discriminates what content is correct or not correct can fill the gaps that these semantic services has, and the user can say and help us to define and to correct this logic behind the tool, inside the guts of the tool. And finally, obviously, if we have other initiatives that can collaborate with us that are more crowdsourced focused, they can also help us and the users and our community of users to finally curate the contents, maybe even editing, doing a kind of editorial curation of the content, or at least voting it and saying if it is a valuable content for sharing or the community or not, because this will imply that we can even discard or or some sources, or add new ones and discover new ones, and so on, things like that. So I think this is all from my side by now.
Right now, it would be great just to know what the next things to come in terms of GIPO platforms are. So we covered this, and that's my question to you, Luis, as well, because we gathered the information from working groups. We discussed the issues. Some things showed up, and if you could elaborate a little bit how it's gonna change the process of GIPO development, or how it's going to feed in the process. What is the first step to come? What's the next one to come? That would be great.
So answering your question, for us, I think that this debate about taxonomies has to start as soon as possible, and try to have a very embryonic or basic taxonomy, because in our current development that is in beta version, we used a very basic taxonomy of general areas under the internet governance, and as we are currently getting content for a list of limited sources. I think they are 35 or so on, and we are going to expand them to many more. So every content item that we are currently getting into the platform is labeled and tagged and classified under this basic taxonomy that we are using. So so we cannot. It's difficult for us to reassign it, because we will have to do it manually. So the sooner we have at least an agreed taxonomy between the community and us, the developers, the best. That's one next step to take as soon as possible. And another one is also planned in our phase development, and is add a new semantic service. We are currently using only one service that is called Open Evidence. No. OpenCales is the misunderstanding of the open beginning. OpenCales is the service we are using. is from a company, is from Thomson Reuters, but we are going to add a new service that is Alchemy APA, that is currently run by IBM, because IBM bought this company, and these are two of the most popular semantic services. We will talk also with Toby to see if we can add also TextRazor to the list, because as we have more semantic services, we can make a mix, some sort of mix of them, and choose the best of each of the platforms. We talked about multilingualism, and this is important in the semantic for the semantic services. Not every semantic service deals with every language. Obviously, English is included, and usually Spanish and French, but for instance, not Chinese or Russian is dealt with every service. So the more services, semantic services we add, we have a chance to include these new languages. And then we will also begin with the social media part. We are going to follow the conclusions of the first workshop, and we'll test with the Twitter platform and see how we can implement these pointers to useful information, as Cornelius Puschmann said, and not trying to get this sentiment analysis of Twitter of what is trending, but at least to get what is the original source of information that the users are retweeting and talking about. So I think there are the three primary next steps.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so basically what we can see is that really the process is somehow modified by the collaboration and discussion with of different stakeholders, which is very interesting that it develops in a way. The thing that we're not going to cover today, but we can mention, or maybe Christina from European Commission can mention, is that there is also advisory is being created right now. Details probably we're going to present some and cover the topic a little bit in detail during the next webinar, but maybe Christina can say something about it.
Yes, maybe I can say something about the advisory group and also the next steps and what we as the European Commission are doing. Concerning the advisory group, I think that the most important thing to highlight is that this group is being formed and is going to work completely independently from us. So the idea is that a group of experts in the different areas that we need to develop the technical platform will be providing advice. So we are very grateful for them to help us with this, and we as European Commission, we want them to have the freedom also to to work independently from us, which is not the case, for instance, for our contractors that have to instead work on the technical development of the tool, and we are following the different stages to make sure that everything goes in the right direction. I mentioned also in previous webinars what is the role of the Commission. We basically want to facilitate the development of this tool, and we rely on the contractors that have the technical background to work on the tool. So we have provided funding for this. We think it's a very important initiative. At the same time, we wish this to become a tool for the global community. So we don't want to have a major role in that. That is why these webinars are being organized to allow the community also to provide their feedback and expertise. And in the end, the idea is really to make to build a tool which will be useful for the final user. So I can also understand that, for instance, in these webinars, we go into very technical matters, especially at the beginning, where we have to make some crucial decisions, for instance, concerning the taxonomy and so on. But let's remember that in the end, we aim at facilitating our lives. We aim at having a tool that will help the user, especially those who do not have much time, those who do not have enough resources to follow all conversations and discussions revolving around internet governance. Maybe I would also like to mention that as European Commission, we are going to facilitate an open forum during the IGF in November in Brazil, and this will be an opportunity to showcase our work on GIPO, to get additional input and to link to other communities, especially those outside Europe. And I really hope that being the IGF in Latin America, we will also bring on board many countries over there. Of course, I see that there is a lot of interest on GIPO. There are also a lot of questions like, but what will GIPO do in the end? And for that, we still don't have clear answers, because we are trying to find the answers together with you. So I think basically these are the next step for my side. I wanted to inform about IGF, where we will have the open forum on GIPO. Also, we think it's important to keep a constant dialogue with the other related observatories or similar initiatives, and that is why we will be inviting to our events representatives of these initiatives to continue building bridges and to continue the conversation with them, because we really think that this enriches both GIPO project, but as well the other projects. And in the end, they have different scopes and different perspectives, but if we can make sure that we work together, I think we will all have something to win from this. So these are my remarks. Thank you.
Yeah, and as you can see, we shared planned engagement activities with you. So that's a draft plan of all the webinars and of course the live workshop that Christina mentioned over the upcoming months. So of course, please, we are inviting you all to join upcoming events. I have one message that I have to unfortunately convey right now. We were supposed to have a presentation of Susan Chalmers of Friends of IGF initiative. Unfortunately, Susan didn't join the webinar right now, so we will have to postpone this this part to the next webinar. The idea behind the presentation of Friends of IGF initiative is was to present the second initiative during GIPO webinars, because what we are intending to do is to during each webinar give the opportunity of similar initiatives to present themselves and also discuss possible synergies and possible question marks with regard to cooperation with and collaboration with GIPO. So each time we're going to invite another initiative. Unfortunately, I have to excuse Susan. She could not join, probably some problems of connection from US. If you have, maybe you can start with some questions. I had a look at questions that were posed, but all of them were were more like comments concerning the quality of voiceover of David. We have also a comment from Fred Clark right now. You are doing a great effort. I'm looking forward to get and read the analysis that will come out in the future. So thank you, Fred, for that. Christina would like to answer.
Yes, on this specific aspect, as we already are collecting a lot of information through the webinars and physical events, and also the initial analysis that we have done, because also we have started thinking about GIPO already last year in 2014 when we developed a feasibility study, and there are some useful observations also there. So what you will soon find on the GIPO website is going to be a sort of summary of this conversation. So you will be getting soon some information that I think will be useful in advancing our discussions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see any other comments right now. I guess if you have any comments, please use the question, or any questions, you please use the question mark to pose a question, and I can read it. Otherwise, you can also raise hands. Okay, I don't see any other comments right now. So thank you very much for participation in this webinar. One more time, please excuse for Susan not being able to join. All the materials from the webinar will be available online in upcoming days, and we make sure that it's going to be available available with the proper quality of voice. And please remember that you are always welcome to reach out to us, and any further questions, comments via email or Twitter. Our Twitter hashtag is GIPOnet. Any comments and questions are welcome. You can always contact us. So thank you very much for participation in this webinar.